I was running a small shop. We had trouble being able to keep track of everything. QuickBooks, Google Calendar, PayPal, email, whiteboards, nothing talked to each other. It was complicated. I wanted to be able to have an easy to use system to be able to keep track of their orders from quote all the way to shipping and pickup. That's what Printavo does. It's cloud-based. You can add your whole team to it and you can give it a free trial. So click the link down below. You can actually sign up, go through a demo, and see if it'll work for your shop.
Hello, Print Hustlers. It is Luke from Printavo back with another episode of the Weekly, and this week, I'm talking about priorities. So if you're like me, and 99.9% of people, you have experienced this very annoying and very common problem. Here's how it goes. You sit down in the morning and you're absolutely charged with energy. You make a huge to-do list. It covers all the bases, right? If you did this all, you'd basically be a superhero. It looks reasonable enough to you, right? Like, it's the morning, you're juiced up, you're ready to go. But then some time passes, day kind of goes by. It's 5:45, you look at your to-do list, you're thinking about heading home, and you realize you have not completed a single thing on the list. Yeah, you've been busy all day, you've been doing stuff, you weren't just sitting there. But you've been playing some horrible game of whack-a-mole, firefighter. You're exhausted, you're tired, you're burned out. The to-do list, it looks totally unrealistic. Does this sound familiar? I think it does. The big question is easy, right? What's the highest and best use of my time? The hard question is, what should I do about it? Priorities aren't easy. Let's chat. First, I do want to give a shout out to Justin Lawrence from Oklahoma Shirt Company for letting us join him on a shop tour. Shop tours are probably our most popular videos. They're certainly my favorite. And I suspect it's because nobody else really gets to step inside of a print shop and show off what they see. Do you let your competitors into your shop? No, probably not. But it comes back to this adage we've seen again and again. You could tell someone the exact recipe for how you do what you do, but that does not mean they'll know how to cook it or do what you do. We've seen Justin go from a fledgling entrepreneur to a hub of Oklahoma's community with multiple businesses spread out across the state. So it's awesome to see his progress. Check it out with a link in our description. All right, so priorities. Luckily, there is actually a super simple heuristic to figure out what to do next. You have to keep asking the question, what is the highest and best use of my time right now? Let's talk big priorities, little priorities, and goals. The kind of business you run changes the priorities you have. The garage screen printer does not have the same priorities as the guy in the big production facility. Now, this is a little bit ironic because we've heard this story again and again from people. The garage printers want to be in the big shop. They want what those guys have. But the folks running the big facilities miss the days when they were back in the garage printing themselves. The priorities really aren't about what you want to do, right? They're about what you need to do. Specifically, what you need to do to get closer to where you want to be. So if you're serious about getting the most value out of your time, really figuring out the highest and best use of each day, then you have to have a really clear and specific goal. PACT, SMART goals. How do you set a goal? Okay, let's chat on this. It's almost a cliche to mention SMART goals. If you've never heard of SMART goals, here's what it means. SMART's an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. But in recent years, this sort of paradigm for setting goals has actually fallen out of vogue. It's 40 years old, after all. A SMART goal for a print shop might be something like, get 500 new customers in 20 weeks. This is a solid goal. It's a big one, but it's really hard to understand where to start. So that's why there are PACT goals. PACT is a little newer, and PACT stands for purposeful, actionable, continuous, and trackable. So I want to repeat that. Purposeful, the goal has some purpose. It's actionable, you can do something about it. It's continuous, it's something that you could keep acting on over and over. And it's trackable, meaning that you could see where. And it's trackable, meaning you can see your progress somewhere and there's a metric that's being measured. So a PACT goal for a print shop is going to look a little bit different than a SMART goal, right? The SMART goal was get 500 customers in 20 weeks. The PACT goal is going to be more like this. Contact 25 potential customers through email and phone every week for the next 20 weeks and document the results. So which do you think is easier to act on day to day? Let's get 500 new customers in the next 20 weeks, or This week, we need to contact 25 potential customers via email and text and phone, and we need to do this throughout every week for the next 20 weeks, and we're going to document it. Now, let's talk about value. Value is really important. Driving value is how you make more money. Contract and high volume shops can get the maximum value by prioritizing workflow improvements, capacity increases, right? What about shops that are more community and brand driven or smaller? They're going to get maximum value by prioritizing order intake, communication, and of course, sales and marketing, simply getting bigger. There's no one-size-fits-all list of priorities for print shops. It's not unreasonable to imagine, say, a contract shop that needs to focus on generating more leads. Maybe their process is super dialed in, but they're struggling to find jobs. Or, alternatively, maybe a community shop needs to prioritize screen making because their community loves them, but they can't keep up with the demand. So, in other words, every type of shop, depending on what they do, needs to prioritize their goals based on the value they can provide. So let's talk a little bit more about big versus little priorities and how to understand what those are. Big priorities. Big priorities are life-sustaining functions of your business. Think revenue, customers, the overall way your shop works. These are top of mind, but they're really broad categories, which makes them hard to act on. So, for example, let's think about 4 areas where you can really, really prioritize things that are big and important. The first is finances, of course. You got to turn a profit. You can't just keep the lights on. Second is customers. You have to keep customers coming back and talking about your shop. Growth. You have to get more leads and keep growing the business, or making sure that customers you already have are ordering more often. And of course, your process. You have to find the best fit for software, products, customers, employees, and you have to make it all sing. These are really big, important things, and you'll always have success going back to these and thinking about them. Finance, customers, growth, and process. They're huge, and they make a big difference. There are also little priorities, and this is where things get a little sticky and complicated. Little priorities are really specific. I like to think of them as something that can be accomplished, maybe in a day or a week or a month. They're more like items on a to-do list than a constant PACT goal or a priority that you need to revisit. Here are some examples. Maybe you fix a minor issue in the shop. You slightly increase prices. Maybe you do something to get more reviews and reactivations. Maybe you automate a couple little tasks with Printavo. Maybe you get a new logo or a nicer website to manage your brand a little better, or you outsource some repetitive process you don't like doing, like tracing logos. So, what shouldn't be a priority then? Are those things little, big? Where do they fit? The more you focus on these little priorities, the more urgent those really big priorities are going to become. Focusing on the way your Instagram account looks or redesigning your logo is a great little priority. That is an awesome weekend project. It'll probably give you a nice sense of accomplishment. But it's not the right priority if your goal is literally get more customers and grow the business. Priorities rest on a foundation of goals. So really, action without a goal, you're kind of just staying busy. Now, in a print shop, you have process and you have outcome. These are really the 2 domains that any business can influence, but it's particularly acute in a print shop. Let's talk a little bit about process. Process is broadly, the work of moving a job through your business. It can be how orders are taken in, how things are printed, and more generally, how information flows through your shop to become a real-world product. So measuring your process is challenging, but it's totally feasible. You've probably heard of some of the most common metrics, right? Time to press, how long a job takes to get on the press, time on press, how long it takes to print a job, your spoilage rate, which is, of course, just a percentage of misprints, the stoppage documentation, this is a little form that explains why the press was stopped for some period. Impression count, that's just basically how many times the squeegee goes back and forth across the screen. But I think it's important to note that measuring these is not the same as measuring an outcome. These are processes. They're more like temperature gauges for the success of your production process. They're not necessarily business critical priorities, but they're like a part of the puzzle. So outcomes aren't really always under your control like the process is. They're where things get really challenging. Now, let's talk about outcomes a little bit. I think it's worth stepping back. Outcomes are, in their simplest form, the quality of the products you print, right? But it's not just what you print. An outcome is really how a customer feels. Outcomes are, in other words, mostly about customer outcomes, not about what you print. Were your customers successful? Were they happy with the products in the process? Like, getting really specific, did their order show up in some chaotic state requiring a time-stretched coach to distribute 36 uniforms, or did you bag and tag it all for them? Did the job arrive print ready, or did you have to dedicate a lot of time to getting the artwork right? So how do you measure these outcomes? How do you know what to prioritize? There's no easy way to do this. It's really hard. You have to ask. You have to listen. You have to be actively gathering feedback from your customers. Do satisfaction surveys. If something goes wrong, have a hard conversation with the customer. If it goes really well, you should have a conversation with them too and figure out what they liked. Always lean on quality control beyond the t-shirt. Control the quality of how customers experience your business. Now, I want to say one thing. Getting more customers solves a lot of problems. At the end of the day, a lot of things are kind of a brand exercise, even your priorities. If you prioritize a really, really incredible storefront experience, hopefully you'll attract those customers that want that. If you prioritize really easy online ordering, you work hard on your tech stack and the customer flow, then maybe you'll attract super savvy online customers that love that kind of experience. But the bottom line is that you have to prioritize something. Otherwise, you will keep finding yourself looking at your to-do list and wondering why you haven't checked anything off of it today. So, what are your priorities? What is something you've prioritized that maybe you shouldn't have? And honestly, did I get it right? I'd love to hear from you. And that's all this week. I'm Luke with The Weekly. Remember, you can always sign up at printavo.com/blog/newsletter and get our newest issue in your inbox every week. Thanks so much.